I came across this video by Fenton and I want us to watch. I have something to say with regards to it. So let's finish watching and
let's treat a two-in-one topic, okay? And I'm going to borrow some few words from IT or maybe electronics, wider interface and strategy. And these two words are coming from the fact that I want to try to explain Xavi, Pedri, Luka Modric. I want to explain their kind of game to you, all right? Football in general is being played on a wider interface. Simply means football operates in space. And anyone who knows this, or if you have been on the field of play at least semi-professional level, you are going to understand this. The wider the interface, the more the game becomes about strategy, skill, before physicality. And I'm not saying there are no instances physicality jumps to the top, but mainly the wider the interface, the more the game or the sport becomes about strategy, skill, and physicality. If you don't believe me, start looking at sports played on smaller interface. So any kind of sports played on a smaller interface is more physical, it's more aggressive. Just look at badminton. Just look at table tennis. Just look at volleyball. Look at UFC. Yes, the smaller the interface, it leaves little space for skill and strategy, which means you need energy to enforce your outcome. But the wider the interface, it's like you trying to go to Afghanistan and then they hide in those mountainous areas. Okay, now it is not about strength. You might have all the weapons. It's more about strategy, know-how, skill. Is because the space of operation is very vast and you can't move reckless. So every single time football is being, in fact, there is a saying that you will come and meet us in the Camp Nou. What do you think that meant? So you beat Barcelona or you give them a tough time wherever they come and meet you, but then they tell you you are going to meet us or you are coming to meet us in the Camp Nou. It simply means they are aware of the wider interface. And already these players have the skill set of making a wider interface look way wider than it is. That is how Barcelona keep beating every La Liga team. When they meet you, already the Camp Nou is wide. And then they have players, Xavi, Iniesta, Busquets, guys who can even make a wider field look way wider than it is. So yes, it is more about strategy on that particular interface. My whole point here is every team needs a strategist. And the strategist, I don't know how God made it. Haven't you wondered how God was able to hide the most vulnerable thing under the strongest thing? The brain is the most powerful thing. Same time, it is the most vulnerable thing ever. Reason why the skull is there to protect the most important thing and the most powerful component, same time the most vulnerable component. So you look around in every single thing. A Pello has a Gattuso by his side to protect him. Okay, a Vitinha has a Fabian Ruiz and what's his name, the Portuguese by his side to protect him. Now, if the strategies become 3 or 4, then you need protection from them. Okay, one of them, they need protection from their own guys. But if it becomes a Xavi, Iniesta, Busquets, or what's his name, a Luka Modric on the cruise, then you need protection from them. Because now the brain becomes way too much for the average person to handle. My whole point here is no one is saying guys who do not play like Pedri are not important. But take this home. The wider the interface, the more the sport becomes about skill, strategy before physicality.
see. Now, as our brother said, football is about strategy. Now, we have to understand that we have two main kind of football or two main ideologies of football. We have the pragmatism and we have what we call the total football. Now, out of this total football is where we get the likes of tiki-taka, relationism, and interpositional play. Now, aside that one, we have the pragmatism. Now, out of the pragmatism is where we get the transitional play. We get the judging pressing. Now let me go deeper. With these two football ideology, we have coaches that control games from advanced position using advanced playmakers. So you can have an advanced playmaker who is a controller for your team. Then you can also have a deep line playmaker who is a controller for your team. So you have to understand these two. Now, when someone controls game from a deeper zone, it does not make him better than those who control games from advanced zones. It all depends on the system and the ideology of the coach. Now, we can only say that someone is better than the other when the person is more influential in the system that the coach is trying to implement. Then the next factor that we can also consider to say that someone is better than the other is when the person is played outside the system that he is familiar with. So let me do this comparison for you to understand something. Now, when you pick a player like Jude Bellingham and you compare him to a player like Pedri, now this is what happens. You have Pedri, who is accustomed to the tiki-taka system or the Barcelona style of play. Now the question is, if you take Pedri out of that positional play system or the possessive oriented system and place into a different system, are you going to get the same results from Pedri? That's the question that you have to ask yourself. Now, when you move a player like Jude Bellingham from the system that he is comfortable with into a different system, is he going to get you the same results as the previous system? That is where the question of who is better comes in. Now, when you take a player like Pedri into the national team, you don't get the same results as he is at the club level. Why? Because the club system suits him better than the national team. The Spanish national team tends to perform better with Pedri not in the starting 11, and there are enough facts and evidence to substantiate what I'm saying. Spain have won 3 major trophies in the last 3 years, and out of these 3 trophies, Pedri had never been a starter in the course or in the run-in for the trophies. Pedri has not always been instrumental or crucial to them achieving that. Spain tends to play better when they have Fabian Ruiz operating as the number 8 for the team. Now let's come to England and Dortmund. At Dortmund, Jude Bellingham operated as the number 8 for the team. Now whatever Dortmund did at that time passed through Jude Bellingham, and he won the best player in the Bundesliga playing in that role. When you come to England, England always performs better when Jude Bellingham is on the pitch, and there are enough evidence to substantiate what I'm saying. Both Jude Bellingham and Pedri have all been operating in that role as a number 10 and as a number 8. Bellingham as a number 8 created more chances, completed more dribbles, and scored more goals as a number 8 than Pedri have. Bellingham as a number 8 for Dortmund completed the most dribbles in the Bundesliga, created the most chances in the Bundesliga, and won the Bundesliga Player of the Year, together with the Bundesliga Young Player of the Year. Now back to La Liga with Real Madrid as a number 10, he won the best player in the league, and both as a number 10 and as a number 8, he gives you better numbers than Pedri. Now, before you conclude that someone is better, 1, understand the systems that they are operating in. 2, their influence in the system. 3, how diverse and adaptable they are to a different system. Then 4, the individual qualities. And last one, you have to understand that there is more to football than just passing. That's why Zidane said that whatever Barcelona were doing with 40 passes, Cruz takes only 1 pass to complete. And that is efficiency. So how efficient is your player in the system that he's playing and in a different system?